I hadn't meant to stay this long. Her living room was too quiet, too still, and every second I remained felt like a choice I hadn't consciously made. She was there, her sister's shadow at first, nothing more than a polite greeting when I came over to help with the homework. But the longer I sat across from her, the more I realized it wasn't the textbooks that made me stumble over my words. It was her. A woman in her mid-40s, poised without trying, the kind of elegance that didn't need to be dressed up. She carried herself with an ease I hadn't seen before, like the years had softened her sharp edges but not dulled her fire. Even in silence, she seemed to fill the room. I told myself not to stare, but her eyes, deep, watchful, almost amused, had a way of catching me before I could look away. And when she smiled, just slightly, I felt younger than I was, like I'd stepped into something I wasn't entirely prepared for. She poured me tea as if it were nothing, the clink of porcelain too loud in the hush between us. I tried to focus on the notes in front of me, but my hand shook just enough to smear ink on the page. "Careful," she said softly, reaching across the table. Her fingers brushed mine, light as a thread, not even a second long. But it stayed with me, burning, making my chest tight. I laughed it off, too quickly. "Guess I'm clumsy today." Her gaze lingered. Not unkind, not judgmental, just present. It was strange, how being seen like that could make me want to look anywhere but at her, yet need to look at her all the same. The air shifted, the way it does before a storm. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs slowly, deliberately. I heard the faint rustle of fabric, caught the faint trace of her perfume. Warm, subtle, nothing like the sharp scents I'd known on younger women. "Your handwriting," she said after a pause. "You press too hard. Like you're trying to prove something to the paper." I swallowed, unsure if she was teasing me or if she had just found a way to look past the surface of me entirely. "And what does that say about me?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. Her lips curved, but she didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me in that way again, the way that felt like both a challenge and an invitation. Silence grew between us, thick and magnetic. I caught myself watching the way her hand rested against the arm of the chair, how her thumb traced the wood absent-mindedly. Small movements, ordinary, but they kept pulling me in. I should have said something, anything to break it. Instead, I shifted closer, pretending to point out a line of text on the page. My shoulder nearly brushed hers. The nearness was dizzying, the warmth of her skin, the quiet rhythm of her breath. For a second, the whole room seemed to narrow down to just that space between us. A fraction too close. A heartbeat too long. Her eyes flicked to mine. Held there. Didn't move. Then, the front door creaked open. A burst of cooler air rushed in, breaking the moment in half. I sat frozen, pen still in hand, as her expression shifted, unreadable now, careful, like she'd tucked something away before it could escape. And I realized, with my pulse racing, that the night had only just begun. The door closed again almost as quickly as it had opened. Someone had only dropped off a package, the muffled sound of footsteps fading down the walkway. Still, the interruption left its mark, the silence now heavier, like both of us had been caught doing something we hadn't actually done. She cleared her throat first, steadying herself. "So, homework." The word was light, but her tone wasn't. I nodded, pretending to refocus on the open book between us. But the lines blurred. Every sense of mine was tuned to her instead. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the faint sigh she let slip when she thought I wasn't looking. I didn't know much about her life, not really. Just fragments I'd picked up in passing. A marriage that had ended years ago. A daughter she raised mostly on her own. A job she'd once loved but spoke of now with a distant shrug. She wasn't bitter, not exactly. More like someone who had grown used to carrying things alone. And maybe that was what pulled me in. The quiet weight she carried without complaint. "You remind me of someone," she said suddenly, almost to herself. "Who?" I asked, cautious. Her gaze stayed fixed on the window, where the last streaks of daylight were fading. "Me. A long time ago. Before I settled into who I had to be." I wanted to ask more, but the way her voice thinned at the end stopped me. Instead, I studied her profile, the way her jaw tightened, the way her hand gripped her cup a little too firmly. I wondered if she knew how much she gave away in those small moments. The age difference was always there between us, a shadow neither of us named. I was in my 20s, still clumsy with the world, still stumbling into mistakes I hadn't yet made. She was nearly twice that, already knowing how the world could cut and heal at the same time. To even sit this close to her felt like I was trespassing into a place I didn't belong. And yet, when she leaned forward to see the page, her shoulder brushed mine. Not by accident. Not entirely. Her breath skimmed my skin as she spoke, explaining something about the problem I'd already solved. My throat tightened. The words I wanted to say lodged there, unspoken. I shifted slightly, meaning to give her space. But she didn't move back. If anything, her hand steadied itself against my shoulder as she pointed to a line of text. The pressure was light, lingering longer than it needed to. I turned my head before I could stop myself. She was closer than I thought. Close enough that I could see the faint lines by her eyes, the softness of her lips as they parted just slightly. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The distance between us was paper thin. Then she blinked, her hand pulling back abruptly as if burned. She started, but didn't finish. Her voice trailed off into the stillness, leaving only the sound of both our breathing. And for the first time that evening, I realized we were each waiting for the other to make a mistake. The lamp cast a soft amber glow over the table, shrinking the rest of the room into shadow. I kept telling myself to focus, but my pen hovered uselessly above the page. She was too close, and every second stretched. Her phone buzzed on the armrest. We both jumped. She silenced it quickly, face unreadable. But the name had flashed long enough for me to catch. Her sister. The one I was supposed to be helping tonight. You should, I began. She'll be fine. Her reply was too quick, too clipped. She set the phone face down, as if that alone could erase the reality waiting beyond these walls. The silence that followed was different now, heavier. I shifted, trying to breathe normally, but she leaned in again, scanning the page I hadn't touched. Her sleeve brushed my arm. My heart thudded. You're distracted, she whispered. I laughed under my breath, low and awkward. Maybe. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching, holding, before darting away just as fast. The tiniest crack in her composure, but enough to undo me. I wanted to reach for her hand, to say something reckless. Instead, I tightened my grip around the pen until it hurt. Another sound, the rattle of the front gate outside. Both of us froze. Footsteps? No, just the wind shifting the latch. We exhaled at the same time, and in that release, something else slipped loose. Her hand brushed against mine again, this time not retreating. Not right away. The heat of her skin was a jolt, a tether. I turned slightly, the space between us collapsing until I could see the quick rise of her chest, the faint tremor in her breath. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe neither of us did. Maybe the moment itself pulled us. Her lips parted, just enough to betray thought she hadn't spoken. My gaze dropped before I could stop it, the curve of her mouth, the impossibility of it being this close. Then, a knock at the window. Both of us startled, jerking back. A neighbor waved, just checking if she'd gotten the package earlier. She smiled, a polite mask, until the shadow moved on. The mask dropped the second we were alone again. I shouldn't, she said, the words trembling on the edge of conviction and collapse. You're not the only one, I answered, before I could think better of it. Her breath caught. She closed her eyes for half a second, as if bracing against something inside her. When they opened, she didn't move away. The distance between us now wasn't distance at all. It was tension stretched to its thinnest thread. Her hand lingered on the table, fingers curled slightly toward mine. I didn't touch her. Not yet. But the space between our hands felt louder than words. We were closer than we'd ever been. Closer than we should have been. And neither of us dared move, because if we did, there would be no going back. The room felt too small for the two of us. Or maybe it was just the weight between us, thick enough to blur the edges of everything else. She hadn't moved since the neighbor's knock, her hand still close to mine on the table. The quiet wasn't calm anymore. It throbbed, alive, dangerous. I can't keep, her voice faltered. She pressed her lips together, shaking her head. This is wrong. I finished for her, the word raw in my mouth. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I swore she might break. But she didn't. She held herself too tightly, like if she loosened even one thread, she'd unravel. I shouldn't want this, she whispered. Then don't say it. I murmured back, leaning closer, because I already do. Her breath caught, sharp, betraying her. And just like that, something shifted. She stood, as if to put distance between us, but I rose too. We ended up face to face, closer than we had any right to be. I could smell the faint warmth of her perfume, softer now, mixed with the nervous edge of her breath. Her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, and for a heartbeat, I thought she'd push me back. Instead, she brushed her fingers against my temple, sliding a stray lock of hair from my forehead. The touch was too tender, too careful, to mean anything but what it did. Don't, she said, but it came out thin, collapsing under its own weight. I didn't move. Couldn't. She leaned against the edge of the table, as if her legs wouldn't hold her, and I instinctively stepped closer, steadying her without touching. The air between us tightened. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Just for a second, but long enough. You're so young, she whispered, almost pleading, like that fact alone should be enough to stop everything. And you make me forget it. I answered, my voice low, close to her ear now. Her shoulders shuddered. A small, helpless sound escaped her, half a laugh, half despair. I lifted my hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. My fingers brushed against her jaw, tracing upward to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The skin beneath my touch was warm, impossibly soft. She tilted her head slightly into my palm. A surrender so slight, it could have been denied if either of us wanted to. But neither of us did. I leaned in, just enough that I could feel her breath against my cheek. Short, uneven, betraying the war she was losing. Her lips parted, not in words this time, but in silence that demanded an answer. I whispered, barely audible, "Tell me to stop." Her eyes closed. She didn't. The moment cracked wide open, fragile, inevitable. My mouth hovered a breath away from hers, and then the sound of keys jingled at the door. The jingle of keys froze us in place. My heart hammered as the front door creaked. But then, nothing. The sound stopped. Whoever it was hadn't come in. We stayed motionless, listening, until the silence outside stretched too long to mean danger. Her hand was still at her side, fingers curled into her palm as if she'd been holding herself back with sheer force. Slowly, she exhaled. I stepped back first, just barely, but the space felt cavernous. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't reach for it fast enough, and the screen lit up between us. A message. From her sister. Did he finish? Don't let him leave early. I need you to keep him there. My stomach tightened. She saw me reading it, her lips parting with the beginnings of an explanation that never came. So I swallowed. You wanted me to stay. It's not what it looks like, she said quickly, her voice frayed at the edges. She stepped closer, as if to soften the blow. I didn't ask her to, but you didn't stop her. My words came harsher than I intended. Her hand lifted, almost touching my arm, then falling back. I didn't want you to leave, she admitted, softer now, almost breaking. The truth of it cracked something inside me. The lie was smaller than the longing beneath it. I laughed once, short, unsteady. So it wasn't just me. Her shoulders stiffened. Don't. She turned away, pacing 2 steps, then back again. Don't make this into something it can't be. Her voice said no, but her body betrayed her. She brushed past me in her restless turn, her sleeve grazing mine, the heat of her too deliberate to be accidental. My breath hitched. I felt her pause when she realized it too. I caught her wrist before she could pull away again. Her pulse beat fast beneath my thumb. You're trembling, I said quietly. She didn't answer, just looked down at where I held her. Her silence said more than words. Then she lifted her gaze, eyes wide, cornered, but burning. You don't understand what this would cost me. And what if I don't care? The confession slipped out before I could stop it, reckless and naked. Her breath caught. She tried to step back, but I held her, gently but firmly, until the fight bled out of her posture. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "Then you'll ruin me." The words should have pushed me away. Instead, they drew me in. I released her wrist, only to let my hand trail down, brushing against her fingers, daring her to take it. She didn't. But she didn't pull away either. And in that fragile space between ruin and surrender, she took one slow step closer. The clock ticked louder than it should have. Every second stretched thin, straining under the weight of what hadn't been said. She still stood close. One step, no more, our hands brushing without fully meeting. The room felt starved of air, thick with the question neither of us had dared to answer. "I should walk away," she whispered, her voice breaking on the first word. "Then why don't you?" I whispered back. Her breath trembled out, shaky, uneven. "Because I don't want to." The confession stole the ground beneath us. I moved first, not forward, but closer in the smallest way possible, my shoulder grazing hers. She didn't move back. Instead, she tilted her face, almost against her will, so near I could see the faint quiver of her lips. "You don't know what this means," she said, eyes glistening with the weight of everything she'd buried for years. "I know it's real," I murmured, my voice low enough that it brushed against her skin. Her hand lifted, hesitated midair, then landed against my chest. Not a push, not a pull, just resting there, trembling, as if testing the boundary between no and yes. I covered her hand with mine, pressing it against me so she could feel the thundering rhythm she'd caused. Her eyes flickered, regret, fear, longing, all colliding in a single, fragile second. And then she leaned in. Not a kiss, not yet, but close enough that her forehead touched mine. Our breaths tangled, shallow, ragged, desperate. "Tell me this isn't madness," she whispered, almost pleading. "It is," I admitted. "But it's ours." Something inside her broke then. A soft gasp, a small surrender. Her hand slid upward, fingers curling around the back of my neck, pulling me closer. I felt the heat of her lips hovering a fraction from mine, the barest taste of what I'd been chasing since the moment I stepped into this house. We didn't rush it. Couldn't. The space between us was too charged to collapse without trembling first. When our lips finally brushed, it was nothing like I imagined. Not fiery, not certain. It was hesitant, broken, like both of us were afraid it might disappear the moment we claimed it. But neither of us pulled away. Her breath hitched, mine caught, and the kiss deepened by degrees, a fragile question turning into an undeniable answer. When we finally parted, she pressed her forehead to mine again, her voice shaking. "Now there's no going back." I closed my eyes, my hand still tangled with hers. "I don't want to." And in that messy, trembling silence, we both knew. Whatever this was, whatever it would cost, we had chosen it. The kiss still lingered on my lips when we finally pulled apart. Not far, just enough to see each other clearly. Her eyes were wet, but not from sorrow. From something older, deeper. She laughed softly, a sound that trembled between relief and disbelief. "I can't believe I can," I said quickly, maybe too quickly. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "I've been waiting for this from the first moment you looked at me." Her hand was still against my chest, caught beneath mine. She turned her palm upward, hesitantly intertwining our fingers. The fit was imperfect, her hand smaller, cooler, but it felt right. Solid. The weight of what we'd done pressed in, but so did the warmth. We stood in that quiet room, two people who shouldn't have been standing this close, and yet couldn't imagine standing anywhere else. "Everyone will think I've lost my mind," she said, shaking her head, though her thumb traced across my knuckle, betraying her. "Maybe you have," I teased softly. "Or maybe you've finally found it." Her eyes closed for a moment, and when they opened again, there was no fight left in them. Only acceptance. "You make me feel seen. It's been so long since anyone looked at me like that." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, tucking it gently behind her ear. My hand lingered against her cheek, my thumb grazing her skin. She leaned into the touch, a small sigh escaping her. No words could carry the weight of that moment. So I didn't try. Instead, I pulled her closer, my arms sliding around her waist. She let herself fall into me, her forehead resting against my collarbone. For the first time, she wasn't holding herself together. She let herself soften, breathe, exist. We stayed like that. No rush, no need for more. Just the warmth of her body pressed against mine, her hand gripping my shirt as if afraid I'd vanish. "You're still too young for this," she whispered into my chest, though her hold on me tightened. "Then let me grow into it with you," I murmured back. Her breath caught, and I felt the small nod against me. That was all I needed. When she finally pulled back, her smile was faint but real. She kissed my forehead, lingering there, as if marking me with something more permanent than words. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. But it was ours. And as we sank onto the couch together, her hand never leaving mine, I knew the choice had been made. No going back. No pretending. Only forward, in whatever shape this fragile, dangerous, beautiful thing would take. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? 4.